Hey, and welcome to another episode. In this segment, we're doing about veterans. We're going to be highlighting what they've learned while they were serving and what leadership skills they've held on to as they transition into civilian life. And then also what they're doing in civilian life, whether they're working for corporate America or they ventured out into entrepreneurship, whatever it is that they're doing. What is it that they learned while they served and how it translated into their civilian life? Well, today we're going to meet Andrew Bice. Andrew is a values driven leader, wellness coach, and a voice for everyday resilience. Andrew empowers individuals and organizations to realign with trust, rest, and purpose. His coaching and content creation reflect a commitment to emotional clarity, intentional rhythm, and the healing power of a pause. So, Andrew, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Tim.
I'm glad you could be here and we could arrange this out. So, why don't you just tell us a little bit more about yourself and about your history?
I'm a retired senior NCO, Army Aviation. Signed the contract back in 1986, and boy, does that seem like a long time ago. Retired in 2008, combat veteran. So, been across the pond a few times, been around the globe multiple times. Now I'm retired on the Oregon coast.
Okay, awesome. So, what is it from that you learned from your time in service as far as leadership that translated really well over into your civilian sector?
Well, that's probably about the simplest question you're going to ask me all day. As you look at attention to detail, you look at the ability to communicate. It's everything we were trained on in the military. You have to be able to adapt, improvise, overcome on a regular basis. So as you translate that into civilian industry, the dynamics change, but the basic principles do not.
Okay. And so, when you translated over, what was your first job after leaving the military?
As a project manager, run a team of 7 people. We distributed software to Army aviation units. I ran multiple schedules, all deployment schedules for the team, going to every location around the globe. So it just fit right in as a aircraft maintainer running production control, quality control. You deal with schedules all the time. So it translated effectively right into laying out a project plan, managing the budget. That was a learning curve because budget in the civilian industry is a little different than military. But at the end of the day, it's just running teams.
And so, how did you get into the health and wellness coaching space?
Funny story behind that one. For the last few years, I've been an ambassador for a nonprofit organization called Mission 22, in which their focus is the fight against veteran suicide. So, as I was working through the last 3 years and doing events, the organization stood up a health and wellness coaching session program. They called it the 90-Day Odyssey program. So, to help those coaches get their required 50 sessions before they could sit for national, we were all offered as ambassadors to sit down and have a session with them. Halfway through the interview, I sat there and I started turning the interview around on the coach because it's everyday life as a leader. You focus on your team, you focus on their mental, physical, family, their well being, because as that dynamic, if they're not 100%, they don't perform. So, health and wellness coaching for me was a natural addition to my portfolio,
Okay. So, what is it about the health and wellness space that really you're like, you know what? I really have to do this?
helping people. Helping people fully understand that within each of us, we have the capability and the ability to make change in a positive manner. Most times that requires a conversation. You always hear that we're coming up on New Year's. You always hear about, oh, I've got all these New Year's resolutions. I'm going to make changes. Month in, they haven't changed anything. They're still talking about them, but they actually have not effectively made a change. So, as a health and wellness coach, it's that ability to sit down and have a conversation like we are, listen to what they say, ask the right questions, help them understand that within them, they have the power to make that change. It doesn't take somebody telling them what to do. Wait a minute, we're all veterans. Tell us we have to do something, we tend not to do it. It's helping them understand that as they shape that vision, they shape that plan. We're the accountability coach. We're going to come back and ask the hard question, well, why didn't you do that? What stops you? What's making you not achieve your goals? Getting them to open up and actually engage in their own health, which as a veteran, that's something we don't do that well. We don't engage in our own health. We check the block. And when we check the block, nothing changes. So for me, it's helping people understand that, helping them get out of that shell, get out of that norm of what they've done, both in uniform and since they've transitioned out, of actually engagement in their own health and wellness.
So when you say we just check the block, what does that mean where we don't really engage in ourselves and we just check the block?
For example, you show up to work one morning and you're just feeling terrible. You go to the doctor looks at you and says, "Okay, what's going on?" "Oh, nothing, doc, I'm good." We're expecting the doctor to provide the answers, tell us what we need to do, but we're not giving him anything to work on. Yeah, he can take your vitals, he can listen to your heart, he can listen to your lungs, but we're not giving him anything to complete that picture. That's checking the block. Mental health awareness, when I was a rookie in the military, you didn't talk about it. Now it's everywhere. And there's people out there telling people to engage. Engagement means actually having that conversation with your provider, talking to them, telling them what's going on, being honest with them. Open yourself up, as hard as that may be, to understanding what they're telling you and asking the questions back to make sure that you fully understand what you need to do.
So what is the most common issue that you see out there since you got into this space of folks not doing well?
Everything's okay when it's really not. Man, we are the top of that iceberg that we don't talk about our health. We don't talk about our mental state. We close ourselves off. We've got to provide for our family. We've got to keep our teams running. We're always okay. When inside, it's a storm. That chaos is running rampant. And we're just getting up every morning doing what we got to do to make things right. At the end of the day, if we don't take that time to say, wait a minute, we really are not okay, sooner or later, that's going to cause a catastrophic failure. And then you're not okay. Then you're in the hospital. Then your family's trying to figure out how they're going to pay the medical bills, how they're going to put food on the table. It's that dynamic of adapt, improvise, overcome to the 10th degree until you can't.
When we find that we're not okay, and everyone who says that they are okay is usually not okay, what is like your first recommendation for folks to do?
It really depends on the situation. That conversation, I've had several since moving out here to the coast with people that the conversation doesn't really start out as I've got a problem. The conversation is just a everyday conversation of what's going on in their lives. And you start picking up on key indicators that there's something underlying that they really want to talk about, but one being a man, they don't want to, being a veteran, they really don't want to. So through that art of communication and engagement of questions, you pull out of them what is really going on. And that really dictates the next path. Whether it's, have you really sat down and talked to your provider and told them, take back pain? Most veterans have back pain. We live with it. It's a constant driver. And every time you go to the VA, they want to take an x-ray, they want to do MRIs. Well, you're fine. Don't worry about it. Here's some medication. Here's some pain meds. Going about your day. For me personally, when they tell me pain meds, I ask for another doctor. I don't take pain meds. But unfortunately, there's a lot of our brothers and sisters out there that do. They fall back on that crutch because that was a provided answer to their issue instead of them having the conversation. So, in all reality, that path really depends on what their problem is. And it all boils back to you've got to have the conversation and be willing to open up and communicate what you're going through.
Yeah, I'm hearing that communication is key when it comes to, taking care of yourself and taking care of your body. But how can we take that and take it a step further? How can we turn fitness, nutrition, and really taking care of ourselves into optimizing us for performance?
Different approaches for different people. Some people are really good about laying out a plan and following it. Others need somebody standing over their shoulder, or they need to be part of a group. Prime example, I have a gym membership. The only thing I use at the gym membership are the 2 classes a week that I attend. The rest of the time, I don't step foot in the building. I don't like gyms, never have, never will. When I'm not in the gym, I'm out in the woods hiking. When I'm not hiking, I'm out in the woods in my Jeep, running trails. Find something you enjoy to where you're either doing it solo or you're doing it with a group of people, you're doing it with a loved one. Find a way to hold yourself accountable as you move through that whole paradigm. So, I mean, it's in the military, we had a schedule. We got up every morning, we went to PT, hit the showers, we got breakfast, we went to work. Everything was laid out. In civilian life, we don't have that schedule unless we make that schedule. So, in taking ownership of our own health and wellness, we have got to identify what works for us and how our day to day routine impacts our health. Another primary example, and I'm going to use myself as the example, 2015 diagnosed as a type 2 diabetic. You want to talk about turning my world upside down? Got injured doing something I love, playing softball. Put on a dead man's profile. My weight went up. Didn't change any of my eating habits. Couldn't really move because moving hurt. Suddenly my weight dropped. I went from 198 pounds to 150 in 3 weeks. My wife looked at me, everybody's saying, "Hey man, you're looking good." I'm like, "What do you mean?" "Well, you're losing weight." "No, I'm not." One morning I went to put my belt on and I was in the very last hole on my belt. Not
Wow.
lengthwise, shortwise. And I'm like, I might have a problem here. Went and had a conversation with the doc. Doc walked in, she looked me dead in the eyes. She goes, "Why are we not sitting in ER right now?" I was like, "What do you mean? I'm fine." She goes, "No, you're not." There I was checking that block. I'm fine. Nothing's wrong. Even though everything she told me after that, I could sit there and look at the night before, the previous weeks, and I could identify every single thing she was telling me as signs and symptoms that should have told me something was wrong. But I ignored it. So she told me the reason her comment is we should have been in ER is my A1C was critical. But yet I was sitting there having a conversation like we are right now. That ability to adapt, improvise, overcome is what keeps us in that state of mind that everything's fine. There's nothing wrong. I can do that. No problem. That changed my learning curve drastically. It changed the way I ate. It changed the way I slept. It changed my exercise routine. I literally had to relearn the food groups, what impacts me, what doesn't impact me, multiple training lessons of what I should be able to eat as a diabetic. That's a joke, by the way. Wait a minute. Sorry, I didn't mean to say that. Yes, I did. Every food impacts every individual differently. So as you look at nutrition, and this fits right into your physical fitness and your well being, food groups impact us differently. If you're only walking 10 minutes a day and you're not doing any other real physical exercise, your intake of your food groups, you need to look at what that's doing. Are you adding weight? Are you maintaining? Are you losing weight? If you're losing weight and you're only walking 10 minutes a day, you really need to look at your food groups and what's going on because that's another indicator that there is something else going on. Just it, you have to identify what works for you. That drove me into setting into a regimen of I get up in the mornings, my days still start before the sun comes up, but I don't eat dinner and I don't eat snacks after 7 o'clock at night. So if I miss dinner, I won't eat till breakfast because I know after 7 o'clock at night, my blood sugars overnight are going to be too high to come back down by morning. My fasting blood sugar will not be the right level the next morning. So those are the things as you engage in your own health and physical fitness is a part of it. I walk 10 minutes every day, regardless, because I know walking 10 minutes will drop my blood sugar levels 30 points. But I learned that by routine. I found the routine that works in my civilian life. And as I get older, knowing that walking still is a challenge at times, I find other ways of things I enjoy walking on the beach, hiking, playing with the dogs out in the yard. I am constantly moving. Heck, even during this interview, I'm constantly moving. My hands are moving. But that's what we do to make sure our body is still engaged.
So what do you say to the folks who are like, you know what? I'm super busy. I've got all these responsibilities, all these things going on. I can't possibly take care of it. What do you say to those folks?
I wouldn't want you to have to hit the little beep to cover my language, so I won't say what I would normally say. I'm a retired senior NCO, and that has a very deliberate, specific response when I hear that, especially from another veteran. At the end of the day, you either make time or we bury you early. Take your pick. Because if you don't engage in your own health and your own physical fitness, your longevity in life is going to diminish quickly. I've seen countless cases in my years, military and civilian life, where we have a fellow retiree that retires, and 6 months after he retires, we're getting a notice that he's being buried. It's like, why? Come to find out, they didn't do anything. They took I'm going to sit on the couch and drink beer and watch TV all day to that 10th degree. And 6 months after retirement, there's a funeral. Had they have stayed somewhat active, their longevity might have been longer. So that's when people tell me they just don't have time. I, I'm a smart aleck at times. I can look at them and say, let's compare schedules. I start work before 4 a.m. I'm done work wise by 1. I support 3 local nonprofits. I'm on the board of 2 of those. I've got my own business to run on the side, health and wellness coaching on top of it. I'm an author. Come on, let's compare schedules. I find time because I make time. We all have that ability, but we allow the noise of the world, the constant pressure, the constant gotta move, gotta keep that momentum moving forward, that we don't take time to pause. First book I wrote, Beneath the Noise, Reclaim the Pause, was why I wrote that book. I was having a conversation with several veterans, and I was taking notes as we were talking, kept coming back to that. One of the things they teach us in health and wellness coaching is utilize the pause to your advantage. Every conversation, we hit a point where there's, for whatever reason, a pause. Most people have to talk. They've got to break that silence. Health and wellness coaching brought a different light for me. It's like, use it. Let that uncomfortable pause be there. So as I sat down and started shaping that book, that kept resonating, which is why the name of the book is Reclaim the Pause. Because if we don't take the ability to take the step back, pause, regroup, we're going to get overrun. And at the end of the day, if we are so tired by the time the end of the day gets that we feel like we didn't accomplish anything, what are you doing? Why are you doing it? So people that tell me they just don't have time, everybody's got time. You have to find the time and make the time. Make it part of your routine. Veterans especially, we know what a routine is. Why do we forget about it when we step out of the uniform?
So how common is that? A lack of a battle rhythm?
Very. I would hate to say that, but it's very common. I've lost count.
Why do you think that is?
Well, if you think about it, in the military, we have somebody dictating that chain of command. There is a regimented routine every single day. There's a training calendar. We know what's going on. So we have somebody dictating that pace. And as we move up in the ranks in the military, we become that person. Call it burnout, call it fatigue, call it whatever you want. When we retire, we no longer have that responsibility. However, what I tell a lot of local veterans is when we step out of that mission, our new mission is living. Live our best life. The only way to do that is to establish what that new routine is like. And you have to be the person that manages that routine, even as a civilian. We work for corporate. Corporate has their own structure. They have their own routines of what they expect because they're paying you to do a job. So there's a regiment there. We can follow that. But then we get home at the end of the day and just too tired. I don't feel like it. Really? Or is it just because you've hit that point where you think you don't have to? So if you think you don't have to, your physical fitness drops, your health drops, eventually your mental state drops. Those are all tied together.
Yeah, as you talk about that, I think about how I change from I have to I get to. Like, oh, I don't have to do that. Well, you get to do that. You have the ability to do that. So how hard is that for folks to make that leap?
Honestly, I don't know. A lot of the people that I've talked to, that conversation just like this one, and we brainstorm it back and forth, they're like, I never thought of it that way. Maybe that's a new way of looking at it. Next time I talk to them, they're doing great. They're going out to do activities. They're scheduling things with their family. Ultimately, as a health and wellness coach, and I tell clients this, it takes 4 to 6 months to change a behavior. That is 4 to 6 months of starting out with once a week, moving to every other week. Over 6 months of that accountability partner of the discussions, the reminders. People who can flip the switch and make subtle changes and actually stick with it don't have a problem. It's the people that make the statement, oh, I'm going to make that change. And 4 months later, they're still talking about they're going to make that change. Those are the people where health and wellness coaching comes into play. They need that accountability partner because they haven't found the right dynamic within their support structure to support the transition.
So is it support structure or is it a lack of discipline?
It could be both. It literally could be both. With the right support structure, discipline can be changed. You're a fellow veteran. You've seen it in uniform. We have soldiers all the time that In different aspects of their day, they're 100%. Other aspects of their day, they're at 20%. What do leaders call it? Lack of discipline, lack of initiative. But is it really? Or is it they require the accountability for somebody to say, hey, knucklehead, come on, let's go. It doesn't change when you move to civilian sector. If you were that way in the military, you're going to be that way. You're going to be worse in civilian sector because there is nobody in civilian sector going, hey, come on, let's go. It's on you. And if you're not producing, corporate goes, yep, goodbye. We don't need you. We're replaceable. Military, it wasn't as easy to say, yep, we don't need you. We're going to move you on. It's a whole lot of paperwork. And there was a whole lot of leaders that, quite honestly, we just didn't do the paperwork. We just move that person to somewhere else and make it somebody else's problem. Civilian sector doesn't do that. They give you a pink slip. Goodbye. Now, where you thought you had problems, you really have problems. You have no income. You have bills to pay. You have a family to support. Now the mental crisis starts kicking in because you start to panic. 988 is a valuable tool. I know a lot of veterans that have called that number just to talk because they haven't found anybody locally that they can sit down and have a conversation with. There's a lot of things we don't talk about as veterans. Civilians don't understand that. They think we should be talking about everything. We carry it differently for a reason because of where we've been, what we've done, and what we've seen. But there are available tools out there. It just requires us to make that first step and admit it, that one, we can't do it alone. Two, find the support structure that will facilitate us getting beyond that break point. But at the end of the day, you've got to be able to do that. And it's not as easy sometimes.
Absolutely. When it comes to being a health and wellness coach, do you specifically focus with veterans or do you help anybody and everybody?
Anybody and everybody. There are nonprofit organizations out there that focus on veterans. Any veteran I deal with that I recognize they really need health and wellness coaching, I refer them to them. It's free for them. I cannot, as a business owner, do free work. I'll have conversations with people all the time. But as a business owner, if I only treat veterans and I don't charge them, do I have a business? Not really. I have a business in name. It's not bringing any money in, but right now, this isn't my primary. My primary is supporting the Department of Defense. I do this because I want to. So as it grows at some point down the road, who knows? Right now, it's a passion. It's a passion I enjoy. I talk with veterans. I talk with community members all the time. I talk with just everyday individuals. At the end of the day, if it's something that I gauge, just like you and I were talking before this, and you brought up the first interview process just to make sure if it's the right fit. We do the same thing for health and wellness coach. There is an initial session that talks about what health and wellness coaching is, talks about the do's and don'ts, talks about talks about if this is a good fit or not. There could be people that health and wellness coaching is a good fit. They're not a good fit for me to work with. I'm brutally honest there. Doesn't mean I don't have a Rolodex of health and wellness coaches I can't refer them to because I do. But it's that understanding of, is the dynamic in the exchange beneficial? Because if it just turns into an argument or a constant, yeah, that don't sound right, it's just wasting everybody's time. So yeah, I talk with whoever needs a health and wellness coach, but for veterans specifically, there are organizations where that service is free. I firmly support our nonprofits in the community that are working to help our veterans because they're getting grant funding, they're paying their coaches, they're covering those costs. Health and wellness coaching is not cheap. I mean, I've done my market research, and an hour is anywhere from $100 to $200 an hour. That's a chunk of change. And most health and wellness coaches are going to tell you 50% up front, the rest of it halfway through. And if they don't take insurance, insurance changes the dynamic because they put a different rate on it. But if it's coming out of pocket, that's a commitment. If you're putting money out of your own pocket, you're making a commitment. Driving factor, that's that check and balance there. I had to pay for this. So if I'm going to get my return on investment, again, engagement, communication.
So, what is one thing that somebody who is watching this or listening to this today can do to put in their kit bag to make their life better when it comes to the health and wellness arena?
Honestly, Tim, that's a loaded question. There is no singular one thing. There's a multitude of things, but let me see if I can't boil it down. just for anyone in the audience that might be thinking as they're looking at their day to day routine, how do they feel at the end of each day? Do they feel like their day is not over yet? Do they feel exhausted? What does that end of the workday look like for them? It could be mental drain, it could be physical drain. If you look at, let's take construction industry, people that work in that industry, by the end of the day, they are physically drained. Multiple times you'll hear them give the excuse, well, I'm just too tired to work out. They have an honest point. They've been swinging a hammer. They've been carrying 2x4s, 4x4s. I get it. But if all they do is come home at the end of the day and pop open a couple beers and eat 2 or 3 helpings and then go to bed, their body is not going to process all of that in a timely manner. They're going to start gaining a little weight. So, in all reality, the most simplest thing that anybody could do is look at your daily routine. Look at how you feel throughout the day. What makes you smile? What makes you sad? What gives you energy? What doesn't? That would be my simplest advice.
No, great advice. My last question then is there anything else that I didn't ask you that you're like, you know what? I really wish you would ask this question.
The irony with a health and wellness coach perspective and leadership is there's always those follow on questions you could come up with. But if the conversation feels complete, you let it go. Honestly, this has been a good, solid conversation for me. And I'm going to give a little bit more about me. I'm not one for cameras. I'm not one for putting myself out front. So this has been a challenge. And thank you for being an outstanding host. But at the end of the day, it's getting people to understand that within each of us, we have the ability to effectively apply change, holding ourselves accountable, having the ability to have the honest conversation. Communication is key in everything we do.
So if you're watching this or listening to this, go to the descriptions in the comment in the descriptions. You're going to be able to find all the links to Andrew's stuff. You're going to be able to get the links to his books, his website. And if you don't mind, I'll put your email out there as well. So people listening to this can get a hold of you and reach out to you. So Andrew, I really appreciate you being on the show, and everyone listening and watching. Thank you for stopping by.
Thanks, Tim. Enjoyed it.